He answered and said, "But I see 4 men unbound, walking in the midst of the fire, and they are not hurt, and the appearance of the fourth is like a son of the gods." Daniel 3:25.
Well, it wasn't the only reason I joined the fire service, but it certainly helped.
Station 51, KMG 365.
Flight 5110 KMG 365.
Yeah, I may have grown up watching shows like Emergency, The Rookies, and SWAT, but that's not really the reason I joined the fire service. That's not what really drew me in. For me, it was something much more personal.
Spent 12 years in the Army Fire Service. Met a lot of people, saw a lot of lives changed. Some for the better, some for the worse. All of them amazing.
Monroe Fire Department commemorative album. This was made in 1987, the year before Papa retired. This is when he gave it to me. It gives the charter and the history of the department. Yeah. Uh-oh. What we got going on here? Uh-oh. Page number 8. Okay. Yeah, all right. Ah, there he is. Yeah. Those couple of those poses look pretty familiar. He goes on to write, "The history of the Monroe Fire Department reflects the dedication and sacrifices of each member and has gained the confidence of the citizens of Monroe. Our goal is clear: protection of lives and property from the ravages of fire and all other disasters. We have built on the achievements of those who have gone before us. We also are trying to achieve the highest level of fire protection for our city presently and in the future. Our strength and spirit becomes clear on the sound of an alarm and the scream of 'let's go.' We don't know what is waiting for us. Yes, we have all crawled down choking hallways with eyes burning, listening for the sound of life and trying to suppress our number one enemy, fire. The citizens of Monroe have entrusted this protection to us, the firefighters, and with God's help, we will continue to live up to their trust in the highest tradition of the fire service."
These are the words of my grandfather, the former fire chief of the city of Monroe, Louisiana, then a Class II department. It has since built upon his legacy and soared to the highly coveted Class I status, as only a fraction of cities in America have. To put things in perspective, there are 29,452 fire departments in the United States, of which only 411 are Class I. Yes, it's less than 1%. I'm quite certain I've heard that somewhere before. The class system is related to the city's insurance rating, and the lower the number, the better. Class I is the best there is, which is now the rating they carry. Not gonna lie, it does my heart good. So why did I join the Army's fire service? I know every Army firefighter can probably tell you the same thing. If I had a nickel for every MP I ever encountered that said they chose MP because the firefighter MOS wasn't available when they went to the recruiter, well, I could probably pave my driveway with nickels. And truth be told, I must have heard that dozens and dozens of times over my career. That just wasn't the case here. My destiny was chosen for me long before I ever realized it. God had a plan. He even had a plan to put me in the middle of the fire, to refine me, bring me out there so I could share my story, and so others may now seek eternal life through him. My grandfather, Billy Ray Breland, was a fireman. And when I say a fireman, I don't mean a firefighter or a high-angle rescue specialist, or a hazmat tech. I'm talking about an old-school smoke eater. It was a different world before OSHA and air packs. It was 1948 in Monroe, Louisiana, and steam-powered pumpers flew out of the fire station on the hooves of the fire department's fleet of horses. Oh, man, it gives me chills. I can just imagine. Back then, I'm sure he didn't imagine having a grandson who would become a fireman either. He was just trying to raise his still budding family on a meager firefighter salary during the Great Depression, while fishing on the Washita River for most of their food. He would go on to provide his family this way for decades. And he would stay on with the Monroe Fire Department, being appointed the chief in 1978 and eventually retiring in 1988 after 40 years of service. It was the 70s in Louisiana. Racial tension was rampant, especially in the South. And yet he still hired the first black firefighter, the first female firefighter, the first black female firefighter, and added 5 fire stations to the city's fire department. He and my nanny were married by Miss Lee Joyner, the first black Baptist female preacher in the state of Louisiana. Back then, he caught hell for all of it, but he simply didn't care. He was a man of large stature, and I would not have wanted to ever been on the receiving end of anything he had aimed at anyone. Oh no! Ever. He was a rule breaker. He was a trendsetter. He didn't live, think, or love anywhere but outside the box. He was a good man that only cared about good people around him and not what the world said about them, or what he should think about those around him. He viewed humanity and the fire service as neutral ground for people to show their best and give their all regardless of who or how they were born. The fire service was an equalizer for any man or woman willing to take on the challenge. He used to say, "Give me a pair of breeches and I'll make a fireman out of them." As a young boy, I remember visiting him at the fire station and being thoroughly and completely awestruck. So when I joined the Army, I heard about the MOS, which back then was a 51 mic. It was open, and I never experienced a single hiccup in securing my slot at the DoD Fire Academy, which was then located at Chanute Air Force Base in Rantoul, Illinois. Now it's closed down. The newer DoD Academy is now down in San Angelo, Texas, at Goodfellow Air Force Base. And in my book, it's by far the best MOS anyone could ever hope for. Hell, it's even included in the original Warrior song.
Boys in a fire little long ago. Stand next to me, you'll never stand alone. I'm last to leave, but the first to go.
I served in the MOS for 12 of my 15 years in the Army, and I can honestly say that some of the finest Americans I've ever had the pleasure to meet and serve with hail from that career field. Some of them truly legendary. You've heard about a few this past year, some real-life heroes, and you'll hear about a few more in the upcoming year. Now, everybody knows there's shenanigans in the firehouse, but that's not the kind of shenanigans I'm talking about here. By the time my grandfather was the newly appointed fire chief, my dad was a new captain himself. And in growing up in a southern culture where daddy's word is the law both in and out of the fire station, he didn't want to give the appearance of partiality in any way. So under his dad, my papa's watchful eye, I should say over watchful eye, what happened is exactly what you would think would happen. When your old man who happens to be the fire chief rides your ass that hard, well, you kind of want to lash out. How do you do that? You go become a cop. That's what you do. So my dad ran right into the arms of the police academy and traded his hose for a gun. All this after surviving a tour in Vietnam as a Marine. Sounds to me like the man was just trying to survive on adrenaline. Good thing that's not genetic or anything. After my folks divorced when I was 12, I didn't see my grandfather much, and it would be about 10 years before I would see him again when I was 18. It was the first time since my childhood, and only 6 months before he died. I didn't know anything about him or where any of my dad's side of the family was other than somewhere in Louisiana. So I called state information. You know, the old area code plus 555-1212. And lo and behold, I got his number. I called him and this deep grumbled voice answers the phone. He says, "Hello." Okay, it was pretty deep. I hadn't even thought about it until that very moment. But I said, "Good afternoon, sir. I don't really know how to tell you this, but I believe I'm your grandson. My name is Ron Breland." And he questioned me. He said, "You're Ronnie Breland? My son Gary's boy?" That low, gruff voice of his. I replied, "Yes, sir." After a deep sigh, he said something that perplexed me in the moment. He said, "Ronnie Breland, you've made my life." After my folks divorced, and due to the nature of my dad's involvement with the mafia cases he was working with the police, our location was kept secret from him for over a decade. And Papa had just recently retired a few months before after 40 years, and God quite perfectly placed him back in my life for those precious few months before he would pass away due to heart complications. 6 months. It may not sound like a lot of time to some people, but it was an eternity for me. And besides a handful of childhood experiences dotted with memorable fire station visits, it was the best time I ever had with him. We would get to go fishing. I would spend hours in his den looking at his collection of helmets, patches, and other fire paraphernalia, forgetting all about the time we'd lost. When he died, I was given his captain's helmet. Like everything, it has a story too. I could have gone on to serve with the Monroe Fire Department as a third-generation firefighter, but quite honestly, I didn't want to ride anyone's coattails. I wanted to do it on my own, and I found what I thought was the ultimate scenario: to serve in the United States Army's Fire Service. The best of all worlds to me. And within those precious 6 months, he impressed so much on me, the value of service to others. Standing up for the right thing won't always get you praise, and that giving of yourself up to and including your life so that others may live isn't such a bad notion after all. He didn't ever tell me to live for something bigger than myself. He showed me. At the time he died, the state of Louisiana had just passed a law prohibiting emergency vehicles from being used at funeral processions for its first responders. And all I can tell you is, nobody in Louisiana got the memo that day, because at every intersection, at every traffic light, there was a truck, light bars burning bright, waiting for the chief to pass one final time. Only a couple years later, I would find myself in an Illinois movie theater with 500 other firefighters from the academy from all different branches watching Backdraft as it made its screen debut. Not gonna lie, the funeral procession at the end ripped my heart out, gutted me. It was almost exactly like my grandfather's funeral procession, like it was replaying right in front of me. Yeah, it really was that big. The funeral procession was packed, and the funeral itself had even more people. It was a true testament to the character of the man's life. Between a few precious memories and 6 months of fishing, talking, and learning, he had probably as big, if not a bigger influence on me than even my own dad. And coupled with the fact his funeral was a testament to how many people truly loved him, it really showed me something to aspire to. That short time we had together influenced my life so much that it completely changed its trajectory. This goes to show you that it doesn't take a lot of time to make a difference, to make a positive influence on someone. You, me, we never really know who we're influencing and to what degree. Funny thing, I originally wanted to go infantry. Dodged a bullet there. Well, maybe not. But that's neither here or there for now. And of course, it wouldn't be me if I didn't leave this episode without a joke. You ready? So why did God create firefighters? Because cops need heroes too. Oh!
Do not get off on exit 22. Over.
We're cleared hot at this time.
SmokeVed 6. This is SmokeJumper 7. Roger that. Next mission. Time now.